This is a lesson on the right hand exercises from my method book volume 2. There's a link for the book underneath the video, but you can also just check it out for free and grab some tips. So we're going to go over a couple of different things. We'll do some melodic right hand fingering, some basic arpeggio patterns with P-I-M-A, some two-voice right hand patterns, awkward string crossings, and a couple of Giuliani arpeggios. I won't play every single example, but I'll give you a little bit of a head start and a tip for each type of exercise. So the right hand exercise, melodic exercise on open strings, just works all the different combinations of alternating fingers, which is one of the most important things you have to focus on when you're learning classical guitar. So the first example will just be I am. And you want to practice that with both rest stroke and free stroke. So that was free stroke. But rest stroke, you'd rest on the string below. And you also want to do all the other fingering combinations that I've listed, such as M-A, 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 M-A. Making sure that you're very proficient with all the different combinations in rest stroke and free stroke, right? You could also practice accenting the first note of each group with the rest stroke. So rest, free, rest, free, rest, free, rest, free, rest, free, rest, free. In terms of other techniques involved, just make sure you clearly have a good hand position, arched wrist, fingers are moving in towards the palm. Also, follow the trajectory of your fingers out this way. We want the first string to sound relatively warm, and then brighten up the bass strings. So we'll be traveling in this direction, not like this, where you end up with a hand position like that, but just upwards through the strings like that. A little bit of forearm movement is okay, or just a little bit of pivot back and forth, or a combination of both. But the main thing is just to have a good hand position. We don't have to be too fancy at this level or talk about multiple ways of doing this. You just have to practice with a good hand position. And then when you go into my technique book, we talk much more specific things to watch out for. The second example is in groups of 3, which is really great because the accent or the changing of strings happens on a different finger. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. You get the idea. That's a really great way to work your right hand alternation skills because it's not going to be the same each time. And that's more similar to the way repertoire will occur. Basic arpeggio patterns, not much to say here. There's lots of different ways that you can practice with, planting and things like that. But we're not going to talk about that right now. Planting we'll talk about in my technique book, so you can check that out once you're finished this book. For now, just play these exercises with a good hand position following the fingerings. Just try to keep your hand still. Don't let it bounce or anything like that. You're just keeping it very stable in a nice healthy position, so not down like this, but just arched wrist. And then working the different combinations, right? Make sure to keep the thumb in front of the fingers. And then just go through all the different patterns. And again, we can come up with more fancy ways of practicing this later on, but for now, for a method book, I think you should just focus on just playing it with good hand positions. The two-voice right hand patterns are very similar to the last two exercises, except we have two notes played at the same time. One thing you can try to make it harder, but again, only do this if you're very, very confident with just playing it, is to try a light rest stroke with the thumb and free strokes with the fingers. But again, if you're not comfortable doing that yet, just don't bother. Just play the exercises, try to keep it clean, have a good hand position. Avoid breaking up the dyad, the two-note group. So not this. That's a common problem for students, so avoid that. Just play them right together. And then go through all the different combinations. That will also include MA and whatnot. Awkward string crossings. In these examples, we talk about what an awkward string crossing is. So a normal string crossing would just be I on the bottom string, M on the top string. Just the way our hand is laid out on the guitar. It makes sense. I on this string, M on this string. It's very ergonomic. But an awkward string crossing would be M on the third string, I on the second string. It's kind of awkward to reach the I finger over. The thing is that awkward string crossings happen in repertoire because repertoire is kind of sometimes random collection of notes in terms of right hand fingering. So we just have to be able to deal with it. So practicing our awkward string crossings is very important. Arpeggio patterns in two voices. Again, this is just more practice playing two notes at a time. Again, be careful of breaking up the notes. Be very careful to not do that. Play them right together very cleanly. Keep the thumb in front of the fingers. Once you've completed all those open string versions, you can move into the Giuliani arpeggios, which just include a C chord and a G7 chord with a B in the bass. The first example the second example. A lot of students find it very difficult to switch smoothly from the C chord to the G7 chord. My advice is this: practice it as block shapes, like the first example does, so your hand learns the block shape. But then, when you're trying to connect the actual arpeggio smoothly, get one note at a time. So C chord, then get your B first, then the next note, then the next note, and keep it down. One note at a time, and of course, get the bass note first because that's the first one you play. If you're trying to jump all three fingers in, you might not have the muscle memory yet to be able to do this. Lots of beginners will not be able to do that. So what you have to do is focus very much on getting one note at a time. And when you're a professional and you're playing faster, you have to do that anyway because it gives you a split second to get the rest of the notes. It's very logical. But students forget. They sometimes try to grab these notes first and then the bass note, which will take you too long and you'll stumble. So get that bass note first.